time to time, people reference an impact that I had helping them dream about the ministry. Tom Brown helped me dream and decide to be in the ministry. He came to Boston in the very earliest time, and he preached, and Tom always preached on his toes, but he said, but I figured out if God tells me I've got to do it, I might as well have fun doing it. And I thought, that's my man right there. And you can be happy and be an evangelist. And thanks, Tom. Thanks, Jordan. Great job. We will not have time for questions. We're going to take a 10-minute break, but let's be back here at 45, okay? Because we're going to hear the very class that Arturo wanted me to do, which is how to train people, okay? And Chris and Rolayo and Kevin and Melissa are going to give that to us at 45 past. All right, let's take a quick break. It's a total joy. What? Okay. It's a total joy to be speaking to you this morning. It really is. We feel more than honored. My name is Kevin. This is my wife, Melissa, and we're thrilled. And we're thrilled about Global Connect, the forum, the chance of a lifetime idea. This concept is such a great idea, and we're so excited to speak about this. This is definitely a passion of ours. It's something that we poured decades of our life into being thrilled about learning, into doing ourselves, and to hopefully being able to pass on. And it does. It feels like this is such a needed thing in the kingdom of God right now. I mean, it always has been. But, we're sort of in this weird world of the ICOC and too much isolation, too much independence, weird thinking and weird things. And the idea that there's a group of churches that are in this room that represent the people in this room representing churches that are united around this idea of building schools of missions and multiplying that and training people. I mean, that can catch fire. That can make people go, I want to be part of that again. That's what I want to be a part of. And we're so honored. Of course, we're so honored to be speaking with the Ogbonnayas. They are heroes to us. They are just powerful people with such a humble spirit. When you're around powerful people that are humble people, it just humbles you. I mean, it's just, at least it humbles me. I don't know. That might be about me. But, we in Boston here are very, very excited. Of course, we're going to be preaching to you things that preaching to you things that we learned from you, and in many ways. And so we're excited. But our title is a long one. The truth about what it takes to train people.
The Kevin original.
That is, now I am known in Boston, in my region, in the campus ministry for having long, very clear titles. I did not come up with that title. And in fact, Doug has discipled me for a long time on stop making your titles so long and so boring, but there it is. He gave me that title, and I'm excited to preach about it. Of course, the truth. Whenever you start talking about the truth about something, Mark King said, boy, if you're talking about the truth, then there's an idea that there are lies. Sometimes we like to believe the lies. Sometimes we have to ask ourselves, is this working? Val, what's happening? Val? Okay. Can you handle the truth? Do you remember that? Do you guys remember this movie, A Few Good Men? A Few Good Men. Do you remember? You want answers, he said. I think I'm entitled to answers. He said, you want answers? He goes, I want the truth. And then Nicholson said, you can't handle the truth. Can you handle the truth as we talk about training? Can you handle the truth? It's a tough thing because it's not going great in our churches in the area of training the next generation. Did you know that? Do you know that? You ought to know that if you're in this room. There's a huge, and Tom already spoke to it. We'll try to move fast and forward here because we've covered some of this, but there's just a huge lack of multiplication of leadership at the younger levels of people that know how to do the kind of things that we want them to do. The ICOC, we have 70 something job offers on the, disciples today, and it just sits there lingering like a swamp. It's just like, nobody's filling the jobs because there's no ministry people out there. And then when a ministry person pops up, church leaders haggle over these leaders like squirrels trying to find a nut. You know what I mean? And it's sad. It is sad. And in Boston, we are also taking responsibility for this, and we'll talk about it. But right now in Boston, the campuses, we're not set up. When we become lead evangelist, women's ministry leader less than a year ago, our campus ministry, COVID didn't help and all this, but we're going in downtown Boston with like 70 students in our downtown ministry. That stinks. I mean, that just stinks, in the Boston church. And so when we took over, my first day, after they said, you're lead evangelist, I asked, Val called and said, you're the lead evangelist. And I said, okay, when it was November 15th. And I said, when do we start? January 1st? And he said, well, how about Friday? And I said, okay, that sounds right. And I hung up the phone, and then I called our administrator and I said, where's the money? Where's the numbers? And where are the people? And what do we got spots for? And then I called the region leaders and said, look, I know that you're supposed to get a staff person. And I know you're supposed to get a staff. Mike was one of those calls. Mike, we know that the Metro is lined up to have a staff. You give a lot of money, but we don't want to send staff to your region. We want to send a bunch of staff downtown to the campus because we've got to load this up. We've got to train this thing. And we'll talk more about it, but this is what we're doing. We are resourcing so that we can train the next generation. And here's another, truthful thing to say. We got videoed by Nathan Tolliver. He brought us up to the sauna on the 16th floor. I was just sweating bullets. I said, could you have found a hotter room? But and he was sweating worse than I was sweating, but he wasn't on campus. But he said, so what's it been like what was the question that he exactly asked? It was something like, what's been the impact of the School of Missions on the people that you've raised up and sent out? How many people have you raised up and sent out through the School of Missions? What's that number like? And I actually went to him on the boat last night and said, my answer, you're going to change. You're not going to put all that in there, because I didn't realize he was taping me. And I started brainstorming going, and what I started to describe to him was, I actually wouldn't say, Melissa and I over the last 15 years or so have sent from our campus ministry over 50 people into the ministry, which whatever that is, it doesn't feel like enough. And our dream is to do 100 in the next 10 years. That's what we want to do. We want to do 100. But I said to Nathan, but I would not say that the School of Missions that we have is the reason that those people have been sent out. The School of Ministry, the School of Missions has not raised those people up necessarily. And it's got nothing to do. The School of Missions is awesome. We need to do it. But it's not going to be an academic class that gets people into the ministry and effective in the work of the ministry. That's not. And I think we think that, get a School of Missions and get a bunch of young people in a classroom and what? I teach a leadership track in the School of Missions. Teaching a leadership track where it's basically an academic teaching of what is needed for a leader does not put people into the ministry. That's not doing it. It's sitting in my living room with these people, and some of what we're going to talk about relationally. And I'm not down on the School of Missions, but we've got to know these schools of ministry need to have trainers. Trainers, and maybe that's you, and maybe that's not you, but it's got to be somebody, and it's not everybody. And that doesn't mean you're bad. You might be bad, but that doesn't mean that you're bad necessarily. Can you handle the truth? Over the last, these are some of the people. This was 15, 20 years ago. This is some of the 50 that we've put in, and they're leading region evangelists in Long Island. They're in one of them there is in Atlanta in the ministry, in Milan, Italy, in South Carolina. Joe Poe's right there. Look at him. In Bosnia, they're all over the world. The people we've trained. These are some of them that are in. This was in Europe. And these are the people that sort of came through the campus ministry, some of them leading churches in different places. We want to talk about how do we get there? You got John and Rachel Buckholz leading in Milan, Tom and Courtney, they're in Paris. Steve's leading, he's learning to take over the church in Providence, Rhode Island, different people in Berlin and Czech Republic and all of these different places. It's an exciting thing to be a part of. Nathan did ask me that. How does it feel to do that? I said, man, I'm the son of a firefighter. The idea that I'm in the kingdom of God, sending people all over the world to change the world for Jesus, man, there's nothing more invigorating than that. But we got to have trainers doing this. And so, we have we have a campus ministry of 70 people in our downtown region. Murphy's one of the campus ministers, and we have 8 campus ministers. Divide that up. 15 people or something like that. It's like not a lot of people to sing. They know, what am I looking for from you? We are looking to baptize. That is, I don't want you, that is what we're doing. We're going to baptize, and we've taken one of the brothers was leading the ministry of 150. So we want to take you out of the 150 ministry, and we want to put you and let you lead 15 people, man. And he was wicked fired up. He said, in the downtown campus ministry? I said, yeah. So let's do it. I said, all right, let's do this. But we're bringing those people in. We've got 15 chance of a lifetime people coming in. These 15 young students are not in the ministry. My Fridays are going to be spent training those 15.
Come on.
With the Petruzzi's, my wife, the McCargs. My Sundays are going to be spent with these 8 campus ministers plus about 10 student interns that we've got, just training them. I'm going to be doing a lot of training, a lot of young people this fall, and I'm excited about it. But over the years, we've done this, and we've seen it go well, and we just want to talk. The four of us are going to talk about 4 areas. Melissa and I are going to talk about 2. And the areas we want to talk about are deep relationships and high expectations. Deep relationships and high expectations. It says in 2nd, we're going to talk about John Mark for a minute. 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 9 to 13. Paul, it's the last letter. He's about to die. Everybody's abandoning him. He says, do your best to Timothy to come to me quickly, for Demas, because he loved this world, has deserted me, and he's gone to Thessalonica. Crescens has gone to Galatia, and Titus to Dalmatia. Only Luke is with me. Get Mark and bring him with you, because he is helpful to me in my ministry. You got to love this particular passage, because if you know Paul's history with Mark, it wasn't always awesome. But here at the end of Paul's life, he said, get this guy who was not young really anymore, but he was the next generation. And he said, bring this guy because he's helpful to me in my ministry. This is earlier. This was a controversy of unity. You should note this as you come up with all your stuff right here, how they dealt with it. It wasn't a doctrinal unity that they were dealing with, this unity issue. It was about the training of this younger man, John Mark. And I love this passage in Acts 15 and verse 36. It says, sometime later, Paul said to Barnabas, the dynamic duo, let's go back and visit the believers in all the towns where we preach the word of the Lord and see how they were doing. Barnabas wanted to take John, also called Mark, with them. But Paul did not think it wise to take him because he had deserted them in Pamphylia and had not continued with them in the work. They had such a sharp disagreement that they parted company. Barnabas took Mark and sailed for Cyprus, but Paul chose Silas and left, commended by the believers to the grace of the Lord. He went through Syria and Cilicia, strengthening the churches. This is a key moment for the first century church because this is the breakup. It's the breakup movie right here. The dynamic duo part ways over the training of this young man. Uncle Barnabas, that's what he was. He was old Uncle Barney. That's what they called him. And, John Mark had blown it. They were on the first mission together, and he didn't have the strength to do what needed to be done, and he left. Now, we don't hear why he left earlier in whatever chapter that is, 14. We don't hear why he left, but here we hear that at least Paul felt like that wasn't the right thing to do. But Barnabas, he's an uncle. He loves him like family. He wants to give the kid a second chance. You ever had a second chance? I've had about 16,000 second chances in the ministry, right? You better have people that are willing to give you second chances. And Barnabas wanted to give him a second chance. And then you had Paul. He wasn't the uncle. He was the apostle. And he was very comfortable looking at Barnabas's nephew and saying, no, you blew it. I'm sure he said that in a sensitive way. You weren't strong enough. You let us down. I'm going to tell Luke to put this in the New Testament so that we can all see how badly you did at this moment in your life? Paul had a little bit of a different take on what the boy needed at that point. Paul was much more comfortable saying, judging him. That's what he was. He was judging him. Paul had expectations that he was very comfortable letting the kid know, you didn't meet them. This didn't go well, and you are going to have to deal with some of the consequences that go with not meeting expectations. Come on. Amen? Amen? Now, the argument that we do is, which one was right? Who was right? Was it Uncle Barnabas or mean old Paul? Now, me and Melissa, over the course of our years, we have been compared at different times, not by us, but by others, as the army and the family of God. And sort of somehow we represent God together. And I'll let you guess which one is the army and which one is more the family. But we have been doing this together for a long time. And we would probably say that the success of our training has been because we bring both of these things together. And we would say about these two men, even though they parted company, that our experience is, if you're going to train the next generation up and do it well, then both of those elements have to exist in the training and in the trainer and in the school of missions that you represent. You've got to have deep relationships, and you've got to have communicated high expectations. Melissa is going, now my wife, she is a relationship guru. That's what she is. She is she makes people, as men and women sit in the meetings that I run that kind of feel a little like this over years and years, Melissa is that presence in there that makes these women, and we put a lot of them in the ministry, feel like I can enjoy a good life here. I actually think this is exciting, even as that mean old man with his big dark eyebrows and his scowl, it scare me. Melissa makes them feel like, no, this is safe. This can be good. I'm excited because she connects and bonds and walks with people, makes them feel like this is going to be safe. There's no one that I know that does it like she does it. And she's going to talk about deep relationships.
It is so good to be with you guys. And I think this whole idea of deep relationships, I sometimes feel like it's my blessing and my curse because it makes loss really, really hard. I was having deep time with Sarah Bulvis, who just moved in from Seattle, and Katrina, or two of our campus ministers. And I was telling them, we just had Alexandra and Jesse move to South Carolina. My daughter's moving to college. My mom just moved. There's been a lot of my heart's moving away lately. And so I was telling Sarah and Katrina, okay, I think every time I want to hold back a little bit more of my heart so it doesn't hurt so bad next time you leave me. And, but I have realized I just can't do that. And it doesn't work well relationally to be able to train unless you've got the depth and the protection and the safe haven that deep relationships provide. I think of Paul, who was the mean Paul with John Mark, but how he viewed Timothy in 2 Timothy 1, where he just says, I thank God whom I serve, as my forefathers did with a clear conscience, as night and day, I constantly remember you in my prayers, recalling your tears. I long to see you so that I may be filled with joy. I have been reminded of your sincere faith, which first lived in your grandmother Lois and in your mother Eunice, and am persuaded now lives in you also. Paul loved Timothy like a son. He knew Timothy's family. He knew Timothy's life. He thought about him day and night. Timothy was not his job. And I believe he absolutely had that with John Mark as well, but he was his heart. He was his life. And I think that is kind of the blessing and the curse of getting to train, is that you get a lot of hearts that end up around you and end up being, it's one of the greatest blessings because you end up having just these deep family relationships all over the world. And, these days, as Kevin said, and as we all know, we've just gone through a crazy 18 months that is not over. But I feel like, social media has come on even stronger during that time. And I don't know about you, but as I look sometimes, even on our church sites and looking at the social media, It does seem like we are in a bit of a crisis with this intergenerational gap that is there. And what I feel like the youth and what the older are trying to bridge and figuring out each other and learning how to pass on, to the next generation. And what I know and see and believe about the youth is that they want to be used. They want and are dreaming. They want to learn. And yet, what saddens me most is hearing from some of them feeling like I will ask 3 or 4 different older women to please mentor me. And they either don't have time or they don't feel like they are confident enough to be equipped to help. And that breaks my heart because if we're going to be able to pass this to the next generation, there's got to be not only a bridge, but just a deeply woven, knit together connection between the two. Because the next generation has so much to give. The young are dreaming, but we've got to invest our hearts by sharing the gospel in our lives. In the trainer position, I feel like I've learned a lot. I've gone through a lot of experience. I've got heroes in this room who have taught me so much, who I want to grow up and be like, thinking of Carol and Brigitte. But we've got a maturity and wisdom that the younger need to learn. I know that I don't know everything. I know that I am far from perfect. And yet I've got to have a confidence that I have something to give and have a trust that the youth want to learn. Because I think there can be this timidity sometimes on the trainer of, because I feel like certainly in America, the young women I see are more empowered than they have ever been. They want to do great things. And yet sometimes that can feel a little intimidating, I think, on the trainer end of, I don't even know what it is. But I think the last thing that breaks my heart is seeing the youth be disheartened and found wanting because the trainers don't feel confident or have the time to give that relationship. And what I have learned for me personally, when I am invested in those that I am training are my family, they are my sisters, it makes the training so much easier. I have learned that I can't hide. I can't try to put on this, I know everything. I want the women I'm training to know all of me, to know my weaknesses, hopefully to see my strengths, but to know what I'm going through. I mean, I can cry at a moment to see, Ryan, and she is my family. She is my heart. She ripped my heart out last year, leaving me. But I'm so proud of her. But we've gone through a lot of life together. Both of our dads died a year and a day apart from each other. We've grieved together. I think about Alexandra, who went to South Carolina. I was in the delivery room helping her deliver both of her babies. I think of Hannah D'Souza, who just left me as well to go on to London and Croatia. But just the talks and the walks that we've had with tears of going through life together. And I think about these new young women who are coming in that I'm going to be their children's auntie and get to know their hearts and know them. And I've got to give every single time and invest to them so that they can hear the expectations and want to grow with that. Again and again and again, I've got to do it because it's my job, but it's so different from a 9-to-5 job for us because we've got to invest our life into these people that we're training. They've got to know me inside out and I've got to know them. I think when I am seeing it done well, most of what I can feel like sometimes my expectation and training can be will be to help the women around me that I'm training, to tell them, you need to go take a nap. You need to go rest because the work and the drive and the ambition is there. And so it's a fun job for me at that point because we're so knit together in heart, the expectations they are thriving with, for me to be able to be the refresher for them, to be an oasis of a safe haven and a place where they can come in and feel like, okay, the number of times that Ryan has just come in and plopped on our couch or sat in a hammock in our backyard, just to feel like she can be away, she can be safe, she can feel at home. That is what I love to provide. And yet I look at how amazing the hearts of these women are. and what they're doing, and they're getting their dreams, they're seeing them happen. There's nothing that brings me a lot more joy than to see all of these women who have gone out, these young men and women who are doing great things, who are, I feel confident in going to take the kingdom to the next level. But I think really knowing that I get to be that for them, that is a huge part of what my job is exciting. It's invigorating, and it's heart wrenching, but it is so heart bonding. And I've got all these family, that I know have my back, and I've got theirs that are my daughter's heroes, my son's heroes, that I feel confident in because they are going out just feeling empowered by the Spirit, but really deeply known and knowing me and our family, and able to then be able to take this next part of the expectations, because there is that safety, that feeling refreshed when they are with us.
Good job. You know, in a training relationship, deep relationships without high expectations is a great friendship that you can find in a lot of different places. High expectations without deep relationship is going to burn people out. That's just what it does. And I see a lot of churches, young people that I talk to all around, that are dropping out, leaving this church, going to that church. It's because they feel like they're not being walked with in these areas. These people, these young people, they don't know nothing. I mean, they're imbeciles in many ways. I mean, as I was, as you were, from paying bills to their dating life and a lot of the older ministers want ready-made ministers. Well, we're not a part of a movement anymore that has all these ready-made ministers that are 30-year-old, know what they're doing, and can just get hired. That's just not where we are. If you're going to find somebody who's going to be you'll be lucky if they're 21, 22, and you're going to have to take them and make them. And you have to convert them. We need Gentiles in the aisles, guys. One of the weird things we got going on in the movement of God right now is that the young generation that we all look and go, we're losing the young generation. We're all talking about kingdom kids. And I got 3 grandparents on both sides are kingdom kids. I love kingdom kids. I'm inspired by kingdom kids. We built our campus ministry with kingdom kids. I'm a total believer. Jopo's a kingdom kid, and I really like him most of the time, but I'm just saying there's not enough Gentiles to help these kingdom kids go, oh yeah, this is an awesome church. I mean, I'm just telling you, we got to get that going in a major way, But the second thing, I didn't even get there yet, is, do you like that moved in? What else does it take? Communicated high expectations. It's not enough to have high expectations. It's not enough to have high expectations if they're not communicated. And it's in the communication that you risk unpopularity with people and with those people. But there's all kinds of different things to train them in. And yet what I want to talk about in terms of high expectations is exactly what, if you weren't there, Mike Tolliver said yesterday in his class with the young people. And it's what I've heard Mike Tolliver say for at least 15, 20 years of me going to these as a college student and going, oh yeah. And it's high expectations about training converters. That's what he was talking about yesterday. We're trying to train converters. That's what we're doing, right? That's what we're doing. Now, people need to be trained in all kinds of different things in the kingdom of God, praise God. But we've got to have high expectations that communicate clearly about building people who can help people become Christians. That's what we're doing. That's what people that are in this training mode should be doing, right? And it's not that they're not areas about love life, paying bills, going to class, getting good grades, good husbands, good wives, parenting, all that stuff. I mean, there's a whole issue of holiness that I'm not going to preach about right now, but that I will mention that is a growing major issue in the kingdom. My son went away to youth corps a couple of weeks ago, and the girl running the youth corps is running around in the sports bra the whole time. It's like, what? He's 15. He was like, Dad, I didn't go near the pool because it was just weird. The last day, the other leader, the male leader, wanted to paint for fun all of the men, the boys, fingernails, because it was kind of funny to do. I was like, what what are we doing here? Exactly. But we got to train on that. But that's not what I'm here to talk about exactly. But we got a war that we got to fight on this. There's a cultural war that is afoot. But that's not what I'm talking about. We've got us agreement. We have. I've been waiting to say that to somebody, and I was able to say it just now, and I feel better. I feel better with myself that I was able to say that to you. There it is. So. Somebody asked me, is it okay if we record it? And I thought, is there something I'm going to say that I didn't want? And I couldn't remember it. And that was it right there. That was it. But we have to have high expectations as trainers, though, that we communicate clearly about building people who can convert people. Okay, we sit in meetings, I sit in relationships, and I ask things like, how many people are we going to share our faith with this week? Okay, and I do that every week, more or less, for at least a period of time until the train is moving and the track is really cranking here. And it's fun meetings and it's fun connections and it's deep relationships and all those things. But how many people are you going to share this? Because it's like what Mike was preaching about yesterday. I think there is an idea in both the kids and in some of us that we want these awesome conversion and awesome growing ministry, and people aren't going to be sharing their faith with like hundreds and thousands of people. I mean, my leadership group with that group in the campus, we are going to share our faith. These chance of a lifetime people are coming. Some of you might be in the room right now, and I'm fired up about you coming. Maybe they're not, but they're going to be going from the camp that they're at in Philly, which is awesome. And they're serving and they're sweeping and they're teaching the kids and all those kind of things. And they're doing all that stuff. And it's great stuff. It's great stuff. But it's not what we're going to be doing when they show up in Boston. That's going to be different, because in Boston, we're going to be sharing our faith with hundreds and hundreds of people. And it's going to be asking that. So, and it's not going to be shaming. These are fun meetings, right? I don't need to shame when brother right here went, I shared a 500 this week. And the next thing goes, I did 2. I don't really have to say much at that point. I just go, okay, we'll move on. We're going to keep moving on. And that's kind of how we do it. But how many people should be coming to our Bible talks? That's a question. We're writing it down. We're already this summer. So how many people did you have come to your 10-person Bible talk? We had 12. All right. How many people did you have come to your Bible talk? We had 2 for the 4th week in a row. Okay. Let's talk about it. Let's go talk about it. But these are the expectations. Like, if you don't have expectations that they're going to make this happen and that God can make it happen through them, well, you're in the wrong spot. You got to have the expectations and the courage and the love and sensitivity and all those things to do this right. We're not looking to bring back terrible practices of shaming people. And that's not how people feel in my meetings. In the meetings that I run, in the relationships that I encounter, most of the time, now there's always things, but most of the time, people are going, this is fun, I want to come back. You generally want to run meetings and groups and that make people want to come back. I mean, that's a key piece right there, if you need to write that down, right? Right? How many people should we be studying the Bible with every week? I got 2 studies. Yeah, okay, well, you need like 15, you need 12, you need to be carrying 6 and adding, and they need to be right there. I mean, this is what they need to be learning. And that's what I learned, and that's what you learned back in the day. Well, we don't like all that, well, then this isn't the meeting for you. Because these are where the expectations are. And it's actually not the meeting for everybody. Actually, like, there are kids that don't want to dream of being evangelists. They're not looking to learn this. And I've learned, okay, if we can identify them, maybe this isn't the meeting for them. We got to figure out a different track for a different, because if people are in the wrong spots and they're not doing what their gift set is, then they're going to feel oppressed and they're going to feel discouraged and they're going to hear all these stories, even though you're not. So we go, no, everybody doesn't need to go into the ministry, but a bunch do. And a bunch will want to if we're doing this stuff right. How are those studies? So once we get all that ramped up and we're evangelizing like crazy and we're getting Bible talk visitors and we're setting up studies with those visitors, how many studies? Oh, 12 visitors. That's awesome. How many studies? That's my next question. How many studies got set up? Oh, 2. 2? Well, what happened? Well, I didn't get to like 5 of them. Bro, that's like the number 1 sin. You know what I mean? Like that. That's what we talk about. That is the number 1 ministry sin. You did all this work to get all those visitors. And did you ask them? No. What? You don't know. Now they're gone into the air. It's like, don't do it, but so they learn it and they know, and these people become, but once we get the studies going, then the whole meeting becomes, a lot of these meetings become, so tell me about this study. How's it going? Who are they? Where are they at? What study are you on? What did you say? What did they say? You always have people, they weren't open. They weren't open. No. Before you decide that they're not open, tell me, what did they say? Why? And what did you say? And you discover all these little terrible things that the person said, or what they didn't say. And it's fun and we're learning it. And you got to learn to confront, or you're too confrontive. You're not loving enough. You don't even have a relationship with that person. Have you visited their dorm room yet? No, why not? Oh, I don't know. There's all these things, but it's expectations that you got to get. I got to move on here. What other Christian, all these kind of things. There's a way to do these things that bring in the harvest. And it's not an accident when the harvest is getting brought in. And people that do them, this is the idea for me. I know, Jesus told them, go to this city, preach this. If they're not open, then leave. Like, it wasn't like, hey, bro, go out there and have a great heart and good luck. That's not what Jesus was saying. It was incredibly specific. But the hope is, right, that after these kids go out, and there's a kid, I'll end with this. There's this kid, Alex Ajuape. He's Nigerian, but he was raised in London, and he goes to MIT. And he's converted off the campus, and he's going to be a civil engineer making huge money, and blah, blah, blah. And he came to me earlier this summer, and I love it. This is my job, that the campus ministers send people like Alex to me when Alex says to them, I think I might want to be thinking about the ministry. And they say, go talk to Kevin, and then this kid comes up to me and we set up a time, and he's just like, he helped this kid from Harvard a couple of weeks ago get baptized. And what did that do for him? What did you think it did for him? He went, why would I go be a civil engineer when I just changed this guy's soul and he's my best friend now, and all these things? Like, it just opens it up. And so you train and have these expectations. And then when they see God move through it, what do? It internalizes for them. And they go, this is how you change the world. And this is it. And that's what we're trying to do. And with the kingdom kids, it's the same way. The kingdom kids that come from a lot of our teen ministries, they never seen a Gentile converted. They wouldn't know how to do it. Now, I'm not down on that. That's awesome. They're great. But let's learn, grow, go, and do. And when they do it, they come out going, whoa, like, we just changed the world. It's amazing, amazing stuff. Anyway, I'm so excited. The next point I would hit, but I'm not going to hit it because Chris is going to do it, is about accountability, which I've hit a little bit of. But I'm so excited to hear from the Ogbonnayas and learn from them. And it's awesome to be teamed up. Thanks for listening to me.
It's a bit late, but we'll make it happen. We can do
All
it
right.
quick.
Okay.
Okay, my address, just send it to valdocoha@gmail.com. This will take 1 minute. Sorry for that. Nope. Valdocoha.
What Doug is saying is he's sorry. It was his fault.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Either one is good. Give me 1 second.
That's good because we could emotionally recover.
My word.
While they do that, can I just tell everybody, maybe, Airbag, Janet, both have COVID. And Will and Kristen Lambert both have COVID. I know we're very concerned about Stella. A lot of us know Stella in Lagos.
Yes, they know.
Black people that, I know a lot of people in here know the Lamberts. So, when we say, I'll say a prayer. Holy God, we just want to ask that you'll, especially Stella just lost her husband to COVID, and now she has COVID. We pray that you will bless her, strengthen her, and get her all the treatments that she needs.
Amen.
We want to pray the same for Will and Kristen, and we're glad Weston is okay, but we pray for Will and Kristen that they'll be fine. And then Renee and Janet, a little older, and I pray, Father, that you'll protect them and help them during this time. And Father, we know there's a lot of people out there that have COVID, and we really, really hate for people to suffer with it. And I pray that you'll guide these guys, that may your Holy Spirit protect them and guide the physicians. And then we want to remember Mark Godweller with his procedure, that all will go well, and that he will live on three more decades with his brand new heart. So we love you, God, and praise you. Thank you for all we're hearing in Jesus' name.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. Thank you, Mike, for that prayer.
Come on, Mike.
Thank you, Kevin and Melissa. Thank you for this. And it's a privilege to be able to share with us some of the lessons that we have learned. We have our own School of Missions starting since 2016. Graduated our first set in 2019. And we started a new set just before COVID broke. And we have right now we have 19 students. And there are so many lessons that we have learned. I want to use the opportunity to thank the Bangalore church, especially for Dinesh and Caroline, who really helped us. A lot of the things they shared with us were like prophecies that came to pass, because we thought, we were so excited to have those young men and women, because we have had a big lacuna in terms of leadership, of bringing young people into the room. And so we were so excited to have young people come in, get fired up. We didn't know what, and so those warning signs, we kept them behind our mind. And when it started happening, we were like, oh, this is happening. So some of the things we're going to share, but of course, I'm so appreciative of what Tom and Macy has shared here today, and just hearing them talk brought back memories for Rolayo and I, becoming interns in the church in Lagos at 25 years of age, coming in. I lost my dad, became a disciple at 14, became a disciple at 25, didn't know how I was going to navigate through life. Stopped going to church for 2 years. I was met by my friend, invited me to church. I didn't have a future, but I didn't have a hope of what life holds for me. Coming into the church was a big light that got through into my life. And I want to use the opportunity to thank Charles Eliku, Tokes, and Showolu, who became like spiritual dads to me. And of course, Nichi Ogwaya, who took me from there, appointed me an evangelist. But I was bad news, because I had a lot of worldly streak, a lot of shaping up to do. Remember not having a dad, a father figure in my life from 14, the formative years of my life, and becoming a disciple at 20, at 25, there was a lot of rough edges. I got fired in the ministry 3 times. So I'm a 3-star general in failure. So if you are training people, I want to encourage you to look at me and have hope. And do not give up on them, because I never knew I can turn out to be this. Really, it is. I have to sometimes pinch myself to say that I'm in this room with great men and women of faith. That becoming a disciple, we read, see them on KNN and all that, and just being in the same room, sharing the same dream. Doug, Mike, and staying with us on the continent for many years. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for the legacies of faith you set for us, for the hope. I remember getting fired the last time, 1999. defined my future in the full-time ministry. And I remember the conversation I had with Mike that day, just signing off. Okay, here is this paper. You are signed off of the full-time ministry. And I remember looking at Mike and I said, can I ever have a chance? And Mike says, with God, there is always a second chance. And I thank you for giving us the opportunity to serve again. I want to thank Richard and Sarah Lawaye, who was there at that time, leading the church. And after 9 months or so of being out of the ministry, they asked us back into the ministry. And ever since then, I made a resolve that if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it with all that God has given me. Right. And I'm not going to cut corners. There's so many things that I've learned, being truthful, being honest, loving this. Like someone said, if I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it fighting for God and for his glory. And so that's why we're here. After coming into the full-time ministry, we've been leading the church now in Lagos and West Africa and the Nigerian churches for the last 17 years. And a lot of the things that have been said here today resonates with us, with me. It's just like speaking to me, and I'm feel emotional about it, but I'm so grateful that my wife and I can share this about the truth about training. And I received those training hands-on. I received it rough and rugged. I received it from I received it from a soldier's point of view, being in the Lord's army, and I received it being in the Lord's family. I've had it rough and tough, and I've had it so pleasant. So I'm sharing, and we're going to share from the point of weakness. Like I said, starting the School of Missions was a breath of fresh air, having 26 young men and women in the age bracket of 25 to 30 in the room with us. And it changed the whole scope of our staff, the dynamics, the energy of the staff meeting. Like I was telling someone, there was a time in the conversation in the staff, what we're talking about is aches and pains. You went to the doctor, it was eye pain, neck, it became like a morbid anatomy. We're all talking about how we are going to age, and we're thinking about retirement. Is it 70, we're going to retire? Then somebody said, are we even going to retire doing this job? And again, it was, so these young people coming into the room change the dynamics, change the conversation. So we brought out our A game, we got out our jeans and our shorts, and we were coming to the staff meeting. Everybody was looking, nice haircut, looking good, to really lead these guys who are all fired up. When they share, they were so fired up sharing. I would say, well, so we're going to equal their sharing, that something is happening. So again, it was really, really awesome. But you see, the truth again about training, one of the things, just to piggyback on what Kevin has shared about just high expectation. With high expectation comes accountability. You can't have a high expectation, preach about it, post it, do whatever, and not follow up on it. So here's a Bible passage that okay, long passage, but I'm not going to go through all of it. But so I just highlighted some point that jumped out to me. Here was Jesus, who is the perfect trainer, who trained men, dysfunctional men, different kind of character. He bore with them. And in Acts of Apostles, we saw them turn the world upside down. They were faithless, they were angry, they were confused, all kinds of people. But here, Jesus says in his teaching, to be like a man going on a journey, who called his servants and entrusted to them his property. For me, it is a sense of trust. For us to feel the sense of accountability, we've got to know that these young men and women that we are being given, it is a trust. God has trusted us and given us this responsibility to be able to raise up and give a vision and dream to these young men and women. And he goes on, he says, after giving them this trust, he went away. And so, just like Paul said several times, sometimes the eyes of the Lord are not going to be on you. I'm not going to, so what are you going to do? When you are in your ministry and you have this young intern with you, what will you do with them? You know, and so it is not so much about, okay, the written sheets of accountability that we're talking about here. Is the heart to know that God has given you a responsibility, that God has entrusted you with the life of another person to transform. They will come weak, they will come tired, confused, they will come excited, not knowing what they, what they want to do, but they want to serve God regardless. Some of them have come to you as a hero that they look up to. And so it depends on what you are going to do with that. And so for me, I have to always stay humble to know that I do not deserve this. I've made my mistakes. And here, a man in my life, a woman in your life to help you, that God has given the opportunity for you to help them catch the vision and to do great things for God. Amen. But we're reminded that after a long time, the master of that servant came and settled accounts with them. We know this passage. So he went away, but he will be back. Accountability, is for sure something that we all have got, to remember that it's part of the responsibility that God has given us. We have got to be accountable. And so we know the story and the result of it. Those who are the one that was given 5 went out, did a good job of it. 2 did a good job of it, but the other one decided to do something else. It says when the 5 came back, when the one with 5 talents came back and reported, it says, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter the joy of your master." How faithful are we with what God has given to us? It's an act of faithfulness. It is not because of your talent. It's not because of who you are or what God has given to you. It's about faith in God using you to help another man to catch on the dream for the missions. And the story goes on. It talks about the one who went and buried and had a love attitude and said, but his master answered him, "You wicked and slothful servant, you knew that I reap where I have not sown and gather where I did not scatter seed. Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers. And at my coming, I should have received what was my own with interest." Even with that, even with the attitude, the master was still expecting something. So whether you are going to do something with what you are giving or not, something will be expected from you. So and that is something we need to know. Because again, it ended by saying, "For everyone who has will more be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away." So we need to know that this is so important. Accountability is very important. Again, Paul had to say this too. He was also an expert builder. And in writing to the church in Corinth, he said, "According to the grace God has given me, like a skilled master builder, I laid a foundation and someone else is building on it." Emphasis says, "Let each one take care of how he builds." He said, "Each one's work will become manifest, for the day we disclose it." And he ended up by saying, "If the work that anyone has built on the foundation survives, he will receive a reward." He was a man who knew what it was like, and the story has been told about how he went about raising Paul, Timothy, Silas, and all the other great men that we read, that he wrote about. He poured out his life to them and he learned from his mistakes. I am going to talk about some of the mistakes that we have learned, we have also made. You see, the first thing is responsibility. We are stewards with responsibility. God has given us this chance to be stewards for himself. And we are called to account for what we have received. We've received time, we've received money, we received talent, we received opportunities, built. The the accountability that he expects is that we got to build with quality. We got to build with quality. We have time, we have resources. Like we're trying to bring the teachers, we're trying to bring so many things into this whole beam, funding that we've received, and all the help that we have received, and we're being called to give honest evaluation. One thing that we learned over this is how we ought to help the people, because after a while, the issue of taking stats, the issue of giving reports became very strange to some of us. We wanted to do what we wanted to do in our ministries. I know we've had so much conversations about reporting and all this. Should I report? Who do I report to? Why are we reporting? Blah, blah. But we got to know that it is important, because this helps us to, honest evaluation helps you to be real to yourself about where you really are and to make improvement. And for me, I have to begin to see accountability from a different perspective, rather than being burdened by it, being fearful about it. And so we've got to learn that for us, as we begin our school, we've got to put things in measure for proper evaluation, for honest evaluation of where we are in the numbers, about the students themselves, how they are doing. Like you talked about the high standard, but we've got to make them feel like this is much needed. It's not threatening, and we cannot be punitive with the statistics that we receive. We've got to be, be gentle, but at the same time, we've got to be consistent in making sure that people know that this is what is needed. Our schools, we must be accountable. There's so much joy. Like that pastor says, when you come to that time of harvest, for a very faithful, hard worker, a trainer who has done his best, you will receive that joy, but you got to do the work. And we need that accountability to be able to do the work. Your work will be richly rewarded. So for me, I'm learning. We learned that. We learned how to be accountable, because we're everywhere. Because like I said, there was a time period where we were not working with young people. We didn't have almost 10 years. There was an embargo really, even in our church, to employing people. So we didn't have young people. So all we did was keep regurgitating the things we knew. There is a newness of that when you have young people looking at you for direction. And sometimes we didn't know what to do. We didn't know what to make of it. And so we were everywhere with that. And some of them will come and we're like, okay, what do we do? We're also fired up, we have to say, guys, can we just get organized? Because these students are all looking at us, and in the report, like what Gilbert reported recently, they were like, we are here, we want to grow, we want to learn, but not so much was being done. And I started to find that some of the trainers needed to be retrained on how to handle young people. And so it was like fish out of water for us. And so we had to be honest about that. And so by the time we started doing those statistics, started talking, we started having the evaluation, it became very apparent that, God wanted us to learn this lesson. So my wife will talk about some lessons, again, some further lessons that we learned, about proper arrangement.
Amen.
We should do this.
I think you moved the slide for me. Yes. You want to go to the next slide? Yes. Is it good? It's working now. Yes, it's working now. Yes. Awesome. Amen. It's so exciting to be here again. It's just been so amazing. Thank you to all those who have spoken earlier. Very, very inspiring, Tom. I've heard you speak many times, Tom, but this one really, really touched my heart. Thank you so much for what you shared. And Jonathan, thank you so much. And to the Millers too, for your example, your encouragement. It's such an honor to be able to share these thoughts with you. And I think for us, honestly, for us beginning the school was the joy that we even have young people that want to do this for us was like, wow, God, there's still some hope for us. It was like, wow, honestly, we're moved to tears. And I'm not kidding. That people even look at us and say, we want to be like you guys, like, wow, who are we? What do we have? But God showed us that we have a lot to still pass on. And I know we definitely made a lot of mistakes. And I want to share with you some of these that we've learned to do better. Some were done a much better job improving on, and some we're still to improve upon. But these are areas that we've had to learn, mistakes that we hope that you will not make if you're just about starting. But we have to learn about proper orientation of trainers and trainees. For the trainers, like he said, some didn't have a clue what to do. The idea of having young people was very exciting. Oh yeah, I want young people, but how do I handle them on a daily basis? And we saw varied effectiveness with our trainers. Some were really hands-on, working every day. Some didn't have a clue what to do. And I know one thing we learned was we need to sit down, make clear expectations of what to expect when you have a trainee. How do you go about, how do you work daily? And teaching our people how to work daily with them. Starting from the mindset, how to believe in people. Some of us have forgotten how to believe in people all over again. How do I believe in someone? How do I pour my life into someone? We have to learn that all over again. For the trainees, we had some of them come in, bless their hearts. They didn't have a clue why they were there. And we had a few who couldn't graduate because they honestly came from different countries all the way to Nigeria only to find out, this is not what I thought it was going to be. Some thought they were coming to learn how to work in the church office, to do account or whatever it was. But loving them through that too was a learning process for us. Sitting down, having some talk with some of these women and saying, you know what, how can this woman has a great heart, but she's in the wrong place. This is not for her. And guiding her, they're still doing great, where they are now, but some of them didn't make it into the ministry. But being able to make our expectations clearer from the onset so that they come in knowing what they're coming in for. This set that we have now, I think we've done a much better job. They all knew why they were there and they all came in clear. And I believe that all of them, that I foresee all of them making it to the full-time ministry.
Yeah.
I know that we had a more efficient selection process as a result.
Yeah.
We had to organize our admin and oversight structure, like Chris mentioned earlier, because we were really very disorganized at the beginning. Who is in charge of academics? All of us were in charge of academics. So there was a lot of, the meetings would just take forever because we had 20 ideas and we didn't know how to narrow it down. So it took us the first 3 years to kind of like figure out, to have an academic director and to have a plan of how we're going to come up with what to teach when, and to be happy with that. To not feel like everybody has to have an opinion about it and we have to get 20 different opinions before so that's working much better now. But I know one thing that helped us is just keeping our ears to the ground. And that's what Chris and I have done more personally in the past few months. Connecting personally with the trainees, hearing from them how they're doing, and being able to even go to the trainees wherever they are, because we have them in different, we call them faculties, different regions where they are, and connecting with them on how they're doing personally. How are their relationships going? How is it going with their trainers? What are their needs? How is the training going for them individually? And because they're so different, they have such various needs, but being able to connect the missing links. Some of them, they all have different kinds of levels of needs, but being able to also connect, the trainers, you could work better with this young man in this area, and you could work better with this young woman in this area, and being able to partner with the trainers on that level has been very, very helpful. So being able to see that each young person is met where they can really be best guided to succeed.
Yes.
And that we don't overlook certain needs so that at the end, they feel like they missed out on something. I know we learned that from the last set where we got feedback from them and some of them really felt, this could have been done better with me, or I was missing this area of my life. And we learned that we need to keep our ears to the ground much more effectively with all of them. And I think that's one thing that Chris and I have done more recently, having that personal interaction with them. For us, keeping our home open for them, having them come over, spending the nights in our home, and making sure that we are there for them to talk to, making ourselves available for them has really been very helpful for us as well. And then going to know where they live, going to see how they live, and just seeing how they cope with life. They feel very grateful for that. Yeah. Being in their own space, making time to spend the day with them, wherever they are, and just seeing that we care about how they're being trained. For them, it's been very, very heartwarming for them. But also it's been helping us to be more effective in seeing how we can bring out the best in each individual person. I think that we've had to work on getting feedback from our trainers about each of the students, but we've also worked on getting feedback from the students about all the trainers. We've had to do that sensitively because, sensitively. But it's important because if you sit in a room with trainers, you're not going to get the whole picture until you hear from the students what they think And so we've had to create that avenue where there's a free flow of feedback, and we've helped our trainers not to feel insecure about that. So I think it's important that at the get-go, you have that in place, because if you don't do that, you're going to have a blind spot that you will be working with behind time. So
yes, and I want to say that that is very important, because some of our trainers became very entitled. They are like, wow, they are in my ministry. And yes, when we were sitting down to design the evaluation form for the trainers, they were also excited. Then I said, well, we're going to design an evaluation sheet for the trainers, for the trainees. Everybody was so fired up about that, how to put things. But for the trainers, there was silence. And it was like, and then the argument was, I hope we're not going to give them the room to throw things at us, and you can see the trainers are becoming protective of themselves, and they become very entitled. So we have to help them see that we all need help. We need help to help them, because nobody's an expert builder. We are trying to be expert builders. But if we don't get accountability for ourselves, we're not going to do a thorough job. And I help them to see that the students are talking. So someone said, who is talking? They should talk openly. They should be open. I said, well, they are not going to be that open with you. But we're going to create an avenue to channel that. So some of these trainees, when they come, they need to be given that opportunity. Not all of them have the kind of relationship that Tom and Jordan have. Because again, it all takes relationship. Like, Kevin and Elisa have shared about, sorry. So these things are the components. It's very important that we get accountability. So again, we had problems with local content. We had to talk about that, bring local content into it, talk about how we can, what we call leadership development and renewal, talk about character things. And so even as we do our curriculum, it's important that we do that. So some of the things, again, final that I want to talk about is some practical things on the building blocks that we learned. A clear, like we said, a clear vision. We had a clear vision and mission. We had to clarify that quickly. We had an efficient and effective recruitment plan. After we learned these lessons, we had to put these building blocks for training. We have to talk about a well-defined leadership structure. Right now, we have an advisory board. We have School of Mission directors. We now know. Then we have trainers and administrator, and we all come together to organize ourselves well. A well-organized, articulated, and written curriculum. We have 4 quadrants of Bible study, biblical study, practical ministry, leadership development, and global connect. That's what our School of Missions is focused on achieving. Then we have periodic training, train the trainer program that we are going to start when Rolayo and I get back, because again, we are trying to shed ourselves of, the responsibility. Just in June, we stopped being the lead evangelist and of the Lagos church, which has taken almost 50% of our time doing. So we're freeing that time so that we can really focus on doing the School of Missions and also helping administer some of the churches outside of Nigeria. We want to be able to raise up great leaders. And so hearing some of these things this morning really encouraged us about making sure that we are training the trainers ourselves, and we are also making sure that they are doing a stellar job. And of course, there's a biannual evaluation for trainers and students alike. And like I said, some trainers, they are great regional leaders, they are great experts, but they have their hands full. And we can't load them with too many students. So we've got to spread it so that they have time for those students, that we can share this kind of relationship where it's a Paul Timothy kind of relation. Because some of these regional leaders, they do have people in their regions that they are committed to already, who are lay leaders and not in the School of Missions. So we can't load them with things that will make them not give attention to those students, because and so we have to have evaluation. And of course, the most important thing again is a guaranteed mission field for the graduates. A lot of them are asking, okay, after we finish, where are we going? And oh yeah, you are going to go into the mission field, but they look, there is no mission field. They're like everywhere is taken. So right now we're earmarking areas that we're already speaking to them about. You know, this is where you're going to go. This is where we're training you. And some of them, we've given them the opportunity to go to those places and see the mission field and feel it. So just yesterday, we planted a church in Lokoja in Kogi State and in Nigeria. And we're going to plant 3 more churches before the end of the year. And we're looking at this, we're churches that we need to replace with these young men and women, and we're talking about it with them. And they are envisioning it, you know, bro. So they're like, oh, where's my name? Okay, you will take there, you take care, you take. So they're already praying about it. Their hearts are in it. So, but we know that the other end we need to cover is the funding.
Small detail.
Those are small details because beam funds are behind us. Small details. So you know, because when they want to ask the questions, because after we have all those fired up meetings, then the elders and all that I would say, so who we pay for all this? So they are all fired up. So, but well, I'm very encouraged. I've been having some conversations with Doug, and he's behind me, and Doug Wentz and Doug Arthur, and all the people are giving us, hey, bro, go for it. So, and that's the message I'm taking back. Thank you all for that. And, so, thank you all for listening, and I pray that God will help us build a great mission field.
I want to take just a moment to say thanks to the Millers for that vigorous and moving presentation. I totally enjoyed that. And Kevin's really right. I hadn't thought about in his own household, the army and the family of God, but that's a good illustration. That was great. And I also want to thank Chris and Rolayo. You know, Balder and I got a chance to visit around the 25th anniversary. The church in Lagos was started from the London church, and Tokes was, and Bola, of course, went. Charles Elucu also went, and Henry Creek went. I mean, there was a great group. And we got a chance to go back for around the 25th anniversary or something like that, which was, but to see Chris and Rolayo lead that church was really humbling for me. You know, they're very humble people, and when they speak, it's obvious that they're very humble, but they are phenomenally capable. And to watch them in front of the whole church, you know, Nigeria is a country of 200 million people. They've been leading a church of over 2,000 people for 17 years. They're tremendously capable. But one of the things that was really humbling, I learned some things while we were there. The Economist put out a list of the 10 toughest cities to live in the whole world. And number 2 on the toughest list, number 1 was Damascus, because they had a civil war, but number 2 was Lagos, Nigeria. And it was remarkable to understand from a global perspective how challenging it is, but to see the joy of the disciples, the joy of the staff, the gratitude. I mean, when you come to church, you come a half hour early and there's 1,000 people there already. And it's like, what is going on? The Thanksgiving, they have Thanksgiving where people come. And I thought, well, you have Thanksgiving? And they said, yeah. And I said, well, ours is like in the fall. When is yours? And theirs is like every other month. But Thanksgiving is a special service where people come and they give extra money. They put big barrels down the front and people come down the aisle and they've already given their contribution, but they're singing in celebration. And if they've been blessed, they give extra. And if they're suffering or somebody in their family is sick, they give extra. But it was that was just so moving to see. And one of the things, it obviously it was moving. I took pride in the Boston church giving $1 million exclusively for missions, which has happened several years in a row, but happened for the first time, I don't know, 5 years ago or something, first time in many years. And I felt good about that. I was happy for the church that they did that. The thing that I learned when I was in Nigeria was that in 2009, for a variety of reasons, the funding went to zero. All of their funding stopped. And so they, as a group, had to take up missions contributions just to keep the outlying churches alive. And they took up $100,000 for the missions contribution. Now, the other thing I realized is that basically they live on about 1/10 of what we live on in the US. That's about where it was. It's 10 times. So for us to give $1 million in Boston out of our luxury was the same as them to give 100,000 out of their poverty. And the hearts of the disciples and the way Chris and Rolayo lead was so inspiring to me. And they are tremendous heroes in our fellowship. And I'm very encouraged. I'm also thrilled because, as you know, we started a program in Johannesburg this year. We hope to start 2 more in Africa by the grace of God and the generosity of Doug Wins and the African Mission Association. No, but we do hope to expand to 4 schools in Africa in the next few months, the next few years, couple of years. And Chris and Rolayo have stepped out of a lot of their responsibilities to be able to help us focus on developing schools of missions in Africa. And we're really looking forward to that in the future. Okay, that's enough boasting about Chris and Rolayo.